Welcome back to Overtime here on WOTM. Mark, let's flip over to the Auburn Tigers. Lost a tough one to Georgia. A game that they were in a little bit early on, and then Georgia did what Georgia's done really all year long, play great defense and come walk away with that football game. Now the Auburn Tigers have 2 losses. Both teams now in the top 5 or top 10, Penn State, and also the now number 1 team, Georgia. What were some of your takeaways from Saturday's big game at Jordan-Hare?
Well, I think Georgia, entering the game, you know that they were going to stop the run, so as they did, and Auburn couldn't run the ball like they had against everyone else. That, to me, I thought was expected.
Yeah.
What I didn't expect Georgia to do was run the ball as well against Auburn that they did. Georgia running the ball against Auburn as well as they did, because coming into the game, Auburn had only allowed 85 yards rushing per game. That was like 8th best in the nation. And Georgia ran for 200 yards against them. I thought that was an area where maybe they could stand up to them and get them to play a little bit more of Auburn's game. That was huge, though, losing Smoke Monday, kind of like Alabama losing Malachi Moore when they did in their game against Texas A&M. That's a rule, too, I think that really needs to be looked at a little better. They did make some plays, some calls that were right. Like in a Texas A&M game, they called back a penalty that they originally called. So I think they're making some good moves with it. But to lose a player because of that for the whole game, I still don't like that. That can change the momentum of too many games. Here, I thought Auburn made some marks early. They drove the ball well against Georgia, better than any other team has. I think there's some good things to take out of this if you're Auburn. You can't be a realistic Auburn fan and think that they were going to win this game coming in. Georgia's very good. Now everybody's talking about them as the best team in the nation. They deserve that before the game because of what they've accomplished as a program the last 5 or 6 years. Now they're trying to take that final step in winning a national championship. You have to play games like this and dominate games like this if you want to win a national championship. So if they would have struggled with Auburn, I might have been a little more worried. Stetson Bennett and his ability to make big plays on Auburn surprised me too. So I think that was maybe something Auburn could take out of this. But overall, I think in the development of them as a program in Harson's first year, this was another step that they took. I thought they played well at times. They played Georgia tougher than anybody than Clemson did. Because I think Clemson going into that game, you didn't know what to expect of both Georgia and Clemson first game of the year. I think now you had a little better idea after seeing Georgia shut out back-to-back opponents in the SEC. Auburn was able to move the ball consistently against them. I like some of the things they did offensively. There's a lot of good things to take into out of this game and into next week. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes. They still have to deal with the rest of the SEC West, and whoever is the best of those 4 or 5 teams that are fighting Alabama and for second place in that division, how they fare against each other is really going to determine that division. Auburn has just as good a chance as anybody else as a Mississippi State or LSU, where they beat, and Texas A&M. I think they have just as good a chance, especially against Ole Miss. This is their next chance to really make a mark on the road against a powerhouse that scored 52 points against Arkansas. So let's see what they can do against them. See if they can keep up with them or stop them. And then if they're able to do that, then they'll have another thing where they can look and judge, okay, we're going pretty good here in Harson's first year. We're accomplishing a lot more than I think a lot of people expected them to.
Exactly. Brian Harsin met the media today. Here's his thoughts about, just like Alabama, taking that next step forward and making improvements.
There's opportunities for us to make plays, opportunities for us to coach better and to do things that we all can improve on. And that's what we have to take into this week. You just got to learn and get better. You got to improve on things that you haven't worked hard enough at or that you still need to perfect. And so it's just that ongoing process of doing those things. And the challenge is doing it at a very high level every single day. That's the challenge.
Meanwhile, for the other college football teams that we follow, we'll quickly let you know how they've done and what they're looking forward to this week. UAB knocked off Florida Atlantic 31-14. Now 4-2 on the season, 2-0 in conference play. They're at Southern Miss next week. Meanwhile, Jacksonville State got a nice win over a top 25 program in the FCS, 28-24. They have a bye next week, and then the number 1 team in the nation and defending national champion Sam Houston after that. Troy now 3-3 after beating Georgia Southern 27-24. They're at Texas State next, and USA basically just flipped the schedule around. They lost to Texas State 33-31, and Georgia Southern comes up this week, short week coming up on Thursday. Meanwhile, games in the SEC coming up this week. We'll talk about these, a lot of these games. We'll pick them in our next segment. Auburn at Arkansas at 11 a.m., Florida at LSU also at 11, and also at 11 Texas A&M at Missouri. See if the hangover effect is there in Columbia, Missouri with Texas A&M. Georgia and Kentucky is the big game at 2:30 on CBS. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi State at 6, and Ole Miss, Tennessee at 6:30. And then the kickoff times for the following week also came out. The big one, the third Saturday in Tennessee. Tennessee and Alabama, no longer one of those early games. It's now a night game. I think a lot more interest will be in that game with Tennessee playing really well here over the first few weeks of the season. Well, coming up next here on Overtime, we got 2 more big topics. We'll have our picks for this upcoming week. We'll also talk those red-hot Atlanta Braves who are on the verge of another championship series. That and more coming up next.